Google Plus has grown to 18 million users and now has an iPhone app. Apple has an amazing earnings call and releases lines with some nice, shiny new hardware. The FBI arrested 14 people connected with the hacking group Anonymous. And there's fake Apple stores in China. We're going to talk about that and more all this week on Tech Weekly.
Tech Weekly, episode 55. It's Saturday, July 23rd, 2011.
You know, Jeff, you do so much better after we have the date up there. Remember that for like the first couple episodes that we changed our setup or something, like we didn't have the date up there, so
yeah.
you were just
and
like,
I was like, oh my gosh, I can't say anything.
Yeah. So how you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Nicholas?
And as always, Carlo's joining us. I can't point this way.
Here's old Carlo Brown.
Carlo's joining us from twitter.com/Carlo Brown and theteenagehackers.com. Carlo, how are you?
Alive, but just barely breathing.
Now, like a lot of times when Apple has some new news, I mean, it usually dominates the tech news landscape, so we will be talking a lot about Apple, but let's start off this show with some more Google Plus news. Now, if you're not on Google Plus, if you're not interested in this stuff, you're probably tired of hearing about us ranting on how awesome Google Plus is, but I've been having a lot of fun, and it was released earlier this week. I think this was pretty early in the week. It was only 3 days ago, but Google Plus now has 18 million users, and of course it's still in private beta, I guess you would say, because you still have to have, it's invite-only beta, but the invites, I don't think they've closed, like they've been open, right, Carlo? Like you can send out an invite at your own will now, right? Like I think they've been open.
I still have invites on mine, yeah.
I still have them as well. I've only invited like, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 people, but anyway, I mean, I have seen some growth over the last couple weeks. Like, I just hit 200. I think I'm at like 210 or something people that have added me to their circles, which is like a little bit more than half of my Twitter followers, which I'm pretty excited about. And the cool thing about Google Plus right now, at least, is you know that it's real people. Like, I can't guarantee to you that when I have 400 Twitter followers, that it's real people, because there's a ton of bots that follow you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So that's a good thing about Google Plus. 18 million users. If you look at this, Jeff, if you scroll down a little bit, there's actually a graphic, a little chart
If I use the
here.
right mouse here.
Yeah. So as you can see, from like July 3rd to like the 7th, that was when invites were really hard to get into. Like that was when people were trying to get into them by like all those backdoor hacks and everything. So it didn't grow very much. Like you're sitting at about 2 million users. But ever since then, you've got this huge hike in users.
That's a massive amounts of users in that short amount of time.
Yeah, 18 million. What are we looking at? Like
18 million touching it.
Yeah. So this right here is going from 2 to 18 million.
In like 16 days? Or
yeah.
Yeah. No, 17 days.
Now, a lot of people on Mashable, I was reading the comment section.
15 days.
And they were saying, hey, well, Facebook has like 175 million users. But think about this. 20 million users in 15 days. Like, obviously, it's probably not going to grow at that rate for a long time. I mean, it could, but that's like a really, really, really high rate of like user turnaround. But still, I mean, doesn't that make you like hopeful of what Google Plus is? I mean, I think as the day goes by and there's more and more users, this is turning like less and less into what people were thinking. There was always the possibility that people had in the back of their minds, oh, this is going to be just like Wave, just like Google Buzz. But now I think it's almost solidified itself as like, hey, this is going to stay. You know?
Not at the moment. Google Plus is just for the geeks. So
well, yeah.
until there's more normal people on there or whatever, then
well, I have a couple normal people.
Yeah, I've had a couple people.
I mean, they are on the geek side of it. You know, they had enough initiative to actually go over to that side of it. So
I've had people, because I'm not on Facebook very much. Like I keep up with Facebook pretty well, but I don't like post. I don't put a lot into Facebook. I read some, but and I've noticed, because the weird thing was I was expecting if I started plugging Google Plus a lot, like this usually happens about on the third or fourth day, like a bunch of my random friends at school or something, they'll be like, hey, what is this new Google Plus thing? Why do you talk about this all the time? Like, if I was in school right now, they'd probably ask me about that. But I haven't really talked too much about Google Plus because I didn't want to get, like, swamped with invites or something like that. And the weird thing was, I've seen about 6 to 8 people who have said, anybody on this new Google Plus, like, I'm joining. And it's, like, completely random. Like, people I would never think would, know about this. But I think one of the biggest things, because there's so many people who have Gmail accounts now, like, I mean, there's Gmail is still outnumbered a ton by Hotmail and Yahoo Mail and stuff. But if you look at it nowadays, like if I'm gonna make a just a standard email account, I'm probably gonna make a Gmail account. And the fact that Gmail and everybody going to Google.com and you having that new toolbar that says +U, like people are gonna look at it and they're gonna be like, hey, what's this? So I think being Google, they're going to get a lot of market share just from people that use their other products, such as even YouTube, like things like that. Like you kind of forget how many properties on the internet is owned and operated by Google.
And they do really good at integrating it kind of throughout the web too.
Yeah, you're right.
You got a lot more plus, like the like buttons.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, that was the interesting thing about the +1 is they implemented that as a project before Google Plus came along, and a lot of people were speculating, what are they going to do with this? And now it goes perfect. Like you can specify on your profile to say, hey, show everything I've +1, which I think is interesting because if you like something on Facebook, that just shows that you like it. Like there's no repercussions of liking something. Like it doesn't show up on your profile, and I kind of like that in a way because let's just say I've been doing this a lot with articles. So like if I like the article, I'll +1 it. But the cool thing is, I can go to a list and say, "Hey, you've +1'd everything on the web."
You can use it as like a bookmark thing too, if you want.
Now,
instead of actually using it as a posting thing.
I think both Jacob and I kind of like the toolbar at the top. I'm not too keen on the design that much, but I kind of like the notifications, and they are distracting. I'm not gonna lie. Like the other day,
but it also helps you get in there and look at it. You might forget. You'd be like,
And the notifications are good enough where it's so in stream and you can actually comment.
Yeah, you can do everything right there on the notification. That's pretty sweet.
Carlo, I know that at least for the show you do some work in Google Docs. Like, does that bother you being on a Google page, like having all these notifications? Because I know some people it does.
Not really, because I'm used to. I usually set up like I've got on the Mac. I set up Growl. I live by it.
Yeah.
And I've always got my phone buzzing off with Twitter, so it's just another notification for me. Really, it doesn't bother me too much. And the only thing that does bother me a bit is I don't really care so much if like when it glows up, say I go and comment on someone's thingy, I don't really care so much if someone else has gone and commented on it later, because I guess I'll check that out myself or something. But a notification that someone's added me or something like that, and I can go and check them out, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it that much, and I can ignore it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. C. Jones is saying in the chat room, the like and the +1 is just for advertising. True, but I think the +1 does some justice because I think a lot of people, especially who are big into like SEO and stuff, since it's a Google project, like they've marketed +1 as being like it'll help your search, like your searchability. I know that's not a word, but you know
I
what I
haven't
mean.
really seen the +1 do much benefit for me because it doesn't actually show up on my profile at all. Anything at +1, it says there's nothing there. And I know I've +1 quite a few things.
And I have noticed, I don't think anything that you +1 inside of the Google Plus ecosystem doesn't show up. But I know Mashable, I'm not sure if I don't think we have it on, I have it on my personal website, but we use something that's built into our theme on our WordPress site. But if you, right now we're looking at a Mashable article here, and if you +1 that, it shows up in my, on my article, or on my profile. But that is good, pointing that out, that if Jake, I +1 Jacob's picture of his niece that was born the other day, that doesn't show up. So I guess you do have a point there. And a lot of people have been treating it as more like a Google Plus like button instead of a +1, which, it's fine.
Well, that's just sort of the way I see it, that +1 button. It's you press it if you like it, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
But that's
it's like a 1-up. You're kind of like, hey, yeah.
Yeah, thumbs up, yeah.
But I think one of the draws that I like is, on websites at least, it does show back up. I mean, that's just a feature I like. I don't know.
That's the one main feature that I like about Google Plus is the Hangout. I don't actually really pay attention to much else on there unless, so as opposed to someone that I really pay attention to. Occasionally something will catch my eye. Most of the time I'm going on there for Hangouts, and that's about it.
Hangouts is the big draw. I was really hopeful for Huddle. It's obviously, they need to do some work on the UI. Now, I think the UI is okay, but it's not feature rich enough to say, hey, let's do a Huddle instead of have a text message. If I wanted to contact Jacob and Carlo via a text message
But it's
style.
cool because if someone else has Google Plus, you know, say Carlo has Google Plus on a phone or something, I could text him.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, instead of clogging up Twitter or whatever with stuff, you could like go over here and make a hangout with Carlo, and you can send him like
huddle
huddle with Carlo, and I mean you can do that, and it's kind of cool because
like
you can add other people.
So
yeah, it's like a chat room.
I think the big thing is it being on, and really it's going to be private stuff, like, or not really private, but it's stuff that you don't, like you said, don't want to clog up Twitter or things like that, or it's something that. I mean, there's times I just want to shoot Jep something that's not worth me typing out an email, or I would rather send him a huddle on my phone than I would type an email out of my phone, just because that's just how I am. So,
if you're gonna go back and forth about it,
Now Jep's got some.
What I'd like them to do, what I'd like Google to do is, but on the iPhone and on some of the Android phones, you have a front-facing camera. Mm-hmm. So let's see why they shouldn't implement it so you can do the Hangout on there.
And now, since we have an iPhone app, Jeb, if you want to show some of the screenshots, and Carlo, I know you've tried it out. It looks to me a lot like the Android app, which, what was I? Of course, it should look like
the iPhone app's the same. It's the same setup completely.
But I mean, there you go. I like that landing screen, don't you, Jeb? Or I do, because you've got straight out of the box, like as soon as you click on the Google Plus icon, you've got your stream, your photos, your circles, and your huddle, which... on Android, they kind of made it where there's a huddle application.
Yeah, you can
do
your own separate.
But I don't know. Do they do that on iPhone, Carlo, or is it just built into the app?
It's the same thing. What you see on the Android, it's the same thing. The huddles and everything is all built into the app.
So, I mean, there you go. You've got your huddle notifications. I think that's cool.
So I think where that blank space is there, I think they should put Hangout there, and you can use your front cam to hang out.
Yeah.
So I find that a lot easier sometimes. To grab my phone and hang out rather than having to grab my laptop all the time.
Yeah. That would be a big deal breaker for me. Like, I would love that because something like FaceTime gave us hope because it was, just such a good integration with iOS devices on the device. Like, Skype for Android and iPhone really isn't that. I mean, it's good for video calling, but, like, it's not that great. And just having a set-alone application. So, like, if Jacob, and this is another thing, I kind of wish that you could do a private hangout in a way. And now, can't you? If you did a hangout, can't you?
Sort of can.
So you wouldn't make it you wouldn't make it public, which is what most people do.
So I could make a. So I could make a circle with just you, me, and Jacob, and call it like pbcasttv crew, and then just invite pbcasttv crew to the hangout, which means that only us are in it and no one else can get in, but you have to.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much the only way you can sort of do that, really. Otherwise, if I was to say send out a private hangout to everyone in, say, my friend's circle, not just you and Jacob be able to see it, anyone in my circle can see it.
Yeah, and C. Jones is making a point in the chat room. You would have 9 video feeds, but what I'm thinking is like a hangout replacement that's cross-platform between Android and iOS that we could use. Like if Jacob wanted to stream something, what I'm thinking is like if Jacob's in Vegas and he just wants to pull out his phone and I'm sitting here, he could just make a hangout with me.
Yeah, and you could go between the phone and the computer.
Yeah.
You can do audio as well on the hangout, so I thought maybe you can have it so your video is going through to whoever, but you can just listen to everybody else.
And
or you can choose who to look at or whatever.
I understand where C. Jones is coming from because it sounds like a weird use case, but like right now with the present existing cross-platform, like if there's no way for me to say, hey, Carlo, you call me on Skype with your iPhone, and Jep, you call me on Skype with your Android phone, that won't work because for one thing, multi-group calling on Skype is lacking in my opinion, and plus, Android and iPhone support for like an application and a service that includes video chat support on Android and iPhone that works pretty much equally. Like that's what I want because that would mean that it doesn't matter what kind of smartphone you have, what if it's Android or iPhone, I could still bring you in because like I mean FaceTime's a cool thing but we would have to have a Mac and an iPhone, which right there that eliminates like a ton of people that we could that we could have call in on a mobile device.
Well, there is more powerful stuff coming out soon though. It's like a couple of years when we got the more dual core phones out there or whatever, and there's more power and then these things will become more possible.
Yeah, and I understand where Ron Knight and C. Jones are both saying, "Hey, the screen's too small." I'm looking at it as like a one-way, like kind of Skype replacement. Like I understand for a 9-way video call, but Carlo, you have mentioned that like you would really like it just for because there's sometimes where you don't want to break out your laptop or even sit at your iMac, where you just want to have your iPhone or an iPad or something right in front of you and you could hang out. Like iPad screams to me.
Yeah.
That would be a cool hangout device, like with the iPad 2 with the front-facing camera. I don't know, but I agree with you that Hangout does need to come to mobile. But I would probably have to use it on Wi-Fi because right now, I mean, unless you're grandfathered in like Jacob, well, right now Sprint's really the only one in the U.S. that has unlimited data. But pretty soon they're talking like, how is Sprint going to be able to keep this up? Because there's a lot of people going to Sprint who want unlimited data, but then again, with more users using unlimited data, they're going to have to start capping it sometime.
I can only see that working on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, true.
But there's like, even around the house, sometimes I said the iMac is off and MacBook's away, and then I get a message from someone saying I'm hanging out. I'd just find it a lot easier just to grab my phone or something, just to say hi that way, rather than having to boot the MacBook up and say, give me 10 minutes and booting up the MacBook.
Yep. So funny. Like, all of us on the panel today, and including Ron, like, none of us can see. Like, I have horrible vision. Jacob's like blind as a bat if he doesn't have the contacts in. I mean, overall,
I don't have these on. I can't see anything.
Yeah. Overall, I really like the Carlo. I mean, how do you like the UI? I mean, I'm used to it now with the Android. Like, if you want to swipe to nearby, of course, there's not too many people near me.
Of the app, I find it a little bit. Well, it's new. Sometimes when I'm scrolling down on the screen, depending on what's there, if there's a video, a picture, or something, it can drag a little bit. But more or less, it's all right. It does the job. You can look at your stream. You can add people back and forth in circles and that kind of thing. See your notifications. So it does the job.
Well, see, and also my work environment kind of makes me use it maybe differently than someone that might have connection all the time on their phone. Like when I get in the building, it's hard to get a good connection. I'm roaming.
Right.
I got, poor signal quality. It's not very good. So when I'm at work, at my cubicle, I have, my Twitter tab up. I have my Google homepage, which has my emails and everything up. And then it's got that bar across. And whenever I get a notification, I don't have it email me anything.
Yeah, that's how I am too.
I turned all the email stuff off. Because I'm going to be going to the Google homepage like all the time,
and if you're in
and
email,
it will be right there. Then I got to delete it too. I got to delete it off my email, and then and I'm like, no, that's too many places to go.
And I have had to turn off notifications on my phone with other people. If I comment on Jacob's stream, for instance, it won't notify me when Carlo comments on it, but on my phone at least, I still have it on notifications because I like seeing that, like seeing some interaction. But I don't know.
I just keep that on my phone because I hate the emails. Because when I first started out in Google Plus, I opened up the mail and then I got like 90 emails.
Yeah.
All from Google Plus and flooded the inbox. I just turned that all off. I got certain notifications enabled on the phone. I still get it to email me if someone adds me, so I can see that. But then, just have that one thing on. Everything else is off because it's just too much.
And Ron Knights and Jacob, I know what he's typing right now. He works at a government installation. It's really hard to get through. And we use something at school called WebSense. It's really like what they do is anything. I mean, it blocks not only domains, but it also can block like keywords and the like metadata and stuff. And this is something very interesting to me because I could probably get on Google Plus at school because it's built into Google. So unless they're going to block like Google or like block that object up there at the top, like it's going to be on hard for them to block.
Well, they can block the
chat
service.
The bar. They
and
could
stuff.
block plus.google.com.
Yeah, they could, but
but on our firewall at work, all you got to do is just go to the secure version of the website and it lets you go to it.
HTTPS. Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
So. And I think Google Plus might even default to that. I'm not quite sure. Another big story this week surrounding Google Plus was the fact that they actually removed a bunch of brand names from Google Plus. And I thought about making a pbcasttv brand, or like a pbcasttv, what am I thinking of? Like a brand page. But they say that brand pages are coming. So much like Facebook fan pages for businesses and stuff, I think this is going to be a really interesting thing for businesses, especially for not only local businesses but also something like a news organization, or maybe like twit.tv or something, because Twitter for news organizations, including pbcasttv, our personal Twitter account, has been a push. Like it's been an all-out push of information. Like anytime you follow ABC News or BBC, like in the UK or something like that, it's a push. Would you not agree, Carlo? Like not too many people are interacting on there, but
Yeah, it's more just consuming. You don't really reply to any of it.
just with the Google Plus kind of back end and what the aura that has been surrounding Google Plus recently is, like yesterday, I was looking for names for a sports blog, and I got some pretty decent comments, but like this one girl on there that follows me on Google Plus, she posted like 30 things, and that, I mean, Twitter, I know, like that's one of the reasons I had to turn off notifications, but having a threaded comment really does conversations justice compared to on Twitter, because Twitter is a good, like, I love Twitter for the fact that I could just be like, hey, at freaking Huge, where you at right now or something, but like if Jay posts a picture, it's so much easier. Like you probably, I bet you got more responses on Google Plus for that picture that you posted than you did on Twitter, right?
On Google Plus, you can actually just see the picture right there, whereas you have to probably click a link on Twitter to get
I like that too.
Well, yeah, and also on Twitter, if people use their Twitter like Nick does, they might not see mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what's that old guy on Google Plus?
What's his name? What's his name? Fox.
Yeah, it's on here.
The older guy. What's the guy that used to be on?
Are you talking about Fox, Michael Lefton?
Yeah, Michael Lefton. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Lefton. You know, he added me.
He's like, congratulations on your baby.
Yeah, he was just like, hey, that's pretty cool. And I was like, it's not mine, it's my sister's. And then I said, that sounds kind of weird. I'm from Alabama. That's my brother-in-law in the picture. I was like,
But see, that opened up, like, if he follows you on Twitter, which he may.
Yeah, he might not respond to it. And just be like, oh, cool picture.
And I think Twitter.
You won't, like, reply because that's kind of, like, personal. But if it's public, then it's kind of like it's out in the middle of everything.
Yeah, and if you're and I think, like Carlos said, the in-stream content that Google Plus provides is just so awesome. And honestly, Twitter's not built for that. Like, Twitter's built for text, like, because, and I think the multi-variation between, like, what client you're using, because they all handle pictures differently. Like, some of them you have to click on the link, some of them load them in-stream. Like, it really depends. And I think that's going to be one of the, like, people are wanting Google Plus apps. And in a way, I think that would be nice, because I'm going to be managing, once brand pages open, I'll probably make a pbcasttv account. Like, that's going to be kind of hard to do that. But then again, I almost want to keep them segregated, because, like, let's just say Seismic or something like that builds in support for Google Plus. Do you honestly think you're going to get the real Google Plus, like, the same experience that you would get with the application? Do you think you're going to get that with Seismic? Like, there's no way that they
can... I
can...
know that TweetDeck are not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have access to the stream and stuff, but I mean, it's all about how much you develop it. So, I mean, it's just really,
like,
you know, how far you want to go into it.
The use case for having Google Plus on TweetDeck would be like to combine the streams with your Twitter, but also be able to push to everything at once. Like, that's what I use TweetDeck for. Like, I'll hook up a Facebook. I'll hook up a Facebook fan page. Like, you can do all this stuff. You can even push to, like, I think you can even use, like, Foursquare in TweetDeck, which is weird, but...
Yeah, you can.
I mean, I don't know. That doesn't really suit Google Plus in my situation. I think for, like, a push notification, like, if you were just saying, hey, Tech Weekly's live, I think that works, but
I do like the fact that they kind of integrate everything together, in the sense of, like, if I'm on my phone and I go on Google Plus and I'm, like, watching Harry Potter or something, and then it gets my location at the rave.
Yeah.
Automatically.
It's almost like a check-in.
It's like I'm checking in, but it's in Google Plus, and I'm, you know, and it's kind of just all together, just, you know, there.
And it's what location tweets, like, sending, like, you can send your location on a tweet, but it's covered
but it doesn't like integrate in with any check-in thing or anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just fun sometimes. And sometimes I don't want to tell everybody exactly where I'm at, so I might say Pelham, Alabama or something.
Yeah.
Or don't, you know, I'm off the grid right now, so.
I always keep that location thing off. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
Although I'm always in the same location, practically.
Carlo is sitting in his chair.
There's no
Carlo is
point
sitting
because
in
I'm
his
always
chair.
in the same location. So.
Another promising thing like VentureBeat is reporting, and I think that that's pretty true. You could have Google Analytics services, maybe not in that brand name, but inside Google Plus. Like that really screams, "Hey, great business opportunity page for me." And on the PBcast TV page, like that would be something that we could get content for the shows. Say like, what do you guys think about OSX or OS10 Lion? And we post that on our Google Plus feed, and we get 30 responses. Where on Twitter, I say that I may get 3, and that doesn't mean that all those people aren't seeing it. It means that like people, I think this is how I treat Twitter. Twitter is more of a I read. Let's just say
You
that
use it as an RSS feed, not
Well,
an actual.
and this is how
social network.
Well, true, but I see this as people doing this as well on Twitter. Like people see somebody ask a question and it provokes thought in their mind, but they don't act on that thought. But like in-stream comments allows you to just be like, you don't just think to yourself. Like Twitter, it seems like one more step to say, hey, I really like it. You know what I mean? But like,
You have to keep in mind though that Google Plus is brand spanking new, so there's going to be more attention than there is
yeah, I guess you
on
are.
Twitter at the moment because Twitter's been there for a long time now, and this is all brand new. So there's going to be a lot more attention there right now.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, I guess you got to look at it like it's a merge between everything.
Yeah.
Like, you got all these different little social networking things coming together, but it's not that intrusive. Like, you can make the groups, and I know Facebook had groups, but who wants to,
They're
like,
clunky.
get on Facebook and
Yeah.
their app didn't work good, and this works really well. And, I mean, you can go in there, and, like, I got a group called Internet Friends, a circle called Internet Friends on Google+. And, I just put everybody that I'm friends with on the internet that adds me on there, I put them in there. And then if I want to, like, mute that whole group, if I wanted to, whatever. But, I could. Or if I wanted to just see that group,
Yeah.
I could.
And I've went to the process of even saying, hey, like, I have a photography circle. Because if I want to see inspirational, like, photos or just look at some cool photos, all I got to do is click on that circle and it mutes everybody else. And all I see is, like, good photos,
Yeah, now, like, I have one that's friends, like, local friends. And if I wanted to tell everybody in my local friend circle where I was at,
Or just be like,
by
hey, I'm
checking
going to
in-
Waffle House. Anybody want to go? Like,
Yeah.
Carlo doesn't
care if I'm going to Waffle House. Well, he might, but I don't know.
Well, if you sent me some free waffles, I might.
Yeah, I mean, but he doesn't. He doesn't
Yeah, I
want to see me
understand.
checking in at Waffle House, cluttering up his Google Plus stream. So I just send
Yeah.
it to the friends circle, and sometimes I put it out on public. But I'm not going to put check-in stuff public, just because you don't really want that. But a lot of times, a lot of my posts I've been doing public just because I'm like, well, maybe somebody will follow me, and
Yeah.
be like, oh, it's cool, yeah.
And
I have to admit, I haven't really made much use of the circles that much. I just use 2 of them. People I know and people I don't know so much.
And I think that's the good thing about circles. Like, you can get as detailed as I have, like,
Oh, yeah.
segregating from, like...
Segregating.
Not segregating, that's a bad
Here's
word.
some black people, here's some white
No.
people. What?
But we've got like, I've got broadcasters on there, so if I want to look at podcast information, I've got that. You can make it, like... I think Google Plus is, like, one of the best ways of, like, seeing however much you put into it, you get back. Like... And that's fine. Like, Carlo didn't want to sit there for an hour and, group up all his friends. So he just has people, like you said, that I don't know so much and people that I know a lot. And that's fine. I mean, it does the
Also,
same.
when I got in there, I found it confusing as hell. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what's this circle business all about? So just like, it'd just be easy if I just use 2 of them.
And honestly, I'll have to say, most of the time I do stay in my circle that has everybody in it, or most of the people that I want to see.
I got 3 circles. I nobody from work has really done anything on Google Plus.
I have a PBcast TV circle just with us 3 in there if
Yeah.
I ever want to. Yeah. Okay.
But so I don't have a work circle, but I have a family circle, a friend circle, and an internet friend circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I got people in. If anybody on my family's on there, then which nobody is actually on there. It's all email based right now. So they're in there, but I mean it's I think it's cool to be able to whatever, because then you can start a huddle. I mean, you can start a huddle. With just that circle. If you want all your friends, hey, what do you guys want to do?
Yep.
I mean, local friends that you could actually go hang out with in physical person.
Or even, like, you could even go to the thing of just saying, hey, I only really go out to eat with, like, these 5 people. You could just put them in a circle and then just be like, hey, where you want to go? Like, you could have
we
Jake
doing
in
tonight,
there or whatever, yeah.
Which
So-
Jake hasn't talked to me in 3
Really?
weeks, but that's besides the point.
So we could huddle like us as well. Like if I'm not so in front of a computer, and you can send me text messages if
Yeah.
you don't want to email me, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like texting, but just doing it through Google Plus or whatever.
And you're doing it in the proper channels. You're not like
Yeah.
like I tend to get sometimes on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, that was pretty cool, and then he's like, yeah, it was, and I'm like, yeah, so and he's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Or just
and I'm
have
like,
LOL
I'm
or
like,
something.
oh crap, and now we're chatting on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So,
please no.
I'm sure, like, we've seen a ton of development with Google Plus, and I'm sure we'll see it mature more in the coming weeks. So I'm sure we'll talk about it more as the times come. But let's move on to our next story. This comes to us from the LA Times, and this broke, I think it was on the 20th, so about 3 days ago as well. The FBI arrested 14 alleged members of the hacker group Anonymous, and most of them were based in Florida. And I was listening to TNT, which is a Twitch show that does tech news every day. They had a caller on the campus of UCF, I think it is. I think that's in Tampa, maybe. But this guy was like, yeah, there's a bunch of cops around me, and I think this guy, I asked the cops, and they said that he was a hacker and that they're arresting him right now. So, I mean, most of these people were based in Florida. Like, honestly...
You know what it is, right?
What is it?
Anonymous. It's all 4chan stuff. Any of those, like Reddit, 4chan...
Oh, yeah.
That's like 4chan is anonymous. Then they're like, oh, it's the hacker group Anonymous.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a hacker group. It's just
And that's-
anonymous.
And the funny thing
It's no user connected to this post.
Yeah. And the LA Times kind of says, hey, maybe we won't see near as much activity from Anonymous. I'm like, we don't know how many people are in the group Anonymous. Like, this
Like,
could be
anonymous
all the 4chan.
is people that don't divulge their name.
Yeah.
It's not like a group. It's like, the hacker group
Well,
formerly known as Anonymous
Yeah.
has been put to rest now. Like, no. It's like,
How do they even know that these guys are even got
Yeah.
anything to do with them? It's alleged after all.
Yeah. I
it's
don't.
so stupid.
I think it's kind of interesting because this is actually
and they made up a word, hacktivist.
hacktivist. Yeah.
That's so stupid.
I mean, I
In
think
the dictionary next month.
yeah, that'll be the word of the year. Remember, like unfriend or friend or something. I can't remember what it was, but that was like the word of the year a couple of years ago. I don't know. I think we've seen a lot of hacking stories lately, and I think people are just getting too caught up with like LulzSec, and they just want to connect somebody to a group. And it's really easy to say, "Hey, the hacker group Anonymous," and that I think of the name, like when they named this, when they just said, "Hey, we'll hack under the name Anonymous," like.
And so that they like to categorize.
It's almost
That's
like
the
a
way they like
joke,
to
yeah.
work.
I mean, it's almost like a joke when people say, "Hey, the hacker group Anonymous." You just kind of like smirk a little bit. You're like, okay.
Yeah, like, yeah, whatever.
Anything.
Anytime I see anything about that now, I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
All right, let's move on to the story. And we spend a lot of time on Google Plus, and I think this will probably consume more of our time. But OS 10 Lion was released this week, and
Here we go.
yes. I've cited a couple, and these will be in the show notes. The Next Web had a really good review. They're about 9 pages. But if you want to get a really detailed review, you can head over to Ars Technica, and John Syracuse once again has brought it. He's got his 27,000-word review of OS X Lion. And keep in mind, much like Snow Leopard, I think, and just in my basic opinion, I think that Snow Leopard and Lion were kind of like minor upgrades. Like, these weren't like complete overhauls.
Yeah, this isn't UI change and stuff.
Well, it's a little bit of a UI change, but for the most part, not really. Just think what
It's
would
not
happen.
too much different with
Yeah.
Lion. Like the mission control and the launch pad are probably the two biggest things. Other than that, there's not much change.
But just think about if it was a real like OS like revision, like a huge overhaul, and John Syracuse. I mean, you could at least double his. I mean, what he'd have to review. But just looking at this, I mean, I'll get Carlo to talk about it in a second. He's played with it, but Ars Technica is also selling an ebook for $4.99. That is the
Blimey.
whole review. I'm like, seriously, you have to have an ebook to read the whole review. But some of the new features, Launchpad, mission control. Carlo, I know you said that. Let's see, Launchpad. Like, I'm getting confused now. Mission control is what they kind of combine what like spaces and.
No, the launch pad is the application center that basically looks like iOS with the folders and like the iPad.
It's
Um,
completely like iOS. Like you can drag icons onto each other, and it makes a folder for you. I mean, it's
yeah, and
like
if
the
you're on a touchpad as well, we can do it by holding down the button on the mouse, but it's more like it on the touchpad where you can swipe like the screens like you're on an iPad.
I think,
Um,
and my original, just looking at these, I think they did a good job with that UI, but nobody, I would never use it. Like, would you not agree that, like, I like the fact how it blurs out the whatever's in the background, you know what I mean? But like, it's completely useless in my opinion.
Now, I actually would find a use for it other than so if I want to root for something in my applications folder, it's another way to do that. I don't know if I would use it too much because most of my main stuff usually gets down in the dock. And if I usually want to find something, I usually go on Spotlight anyway. But it's uh, it's another way to find your stuff, I guess, especially if you organise it or whatever. The mission control I do like though quite a lot. Because I'm a big user of expose and spaces, and having it all together like that is pretty good. But there are a few bugs in the spaces that have annoyed me a bit.
Um, one of the
And
things that,
there's a few other things on there as well I'm not too keen on in line. Autocorrect and reverse scrolling, I had to get rid of both of them.
yeah, now let's focus on this natural scoring. This comes, and I always look, when I look at an original OS, like when Ubuntu or something like that, when I'm looking to review an OS, I think what do they set as default? Like that means that this is how they want you to use it. Like this is how it's designed to use. And the odd thing was this new natural scrolling is now the default in OS 10 Lion. And
It
that's
is, yeah, because when I first installed it, I opened up the browser first straight away, and I'm like, why the hell am I not scrolling down?
yeah.
Nothing was going on, and I'm like, oh. And I lasted all of about 1 minute, and I was like, right, this is changing now. It's straight into the settings and got rid of that.
And
And
I
then
some people have said that if they played with it long enough they get it, but I mean
I don't get it at all.
it's obviously another, like, I wouldn't say rip off, but I mean of OS or of iOS, because I mean that's the exact thing. Like, but it makes more like, I guess since
But
we've
it's
been
supposed to
using,
be like with the reverse scrolling. It's supposed to be just like when you're scrolling up and down on an iPhone and an iPad, with the way that um,
yeah,
you go down with your fingers like that, and then the screen goes down. It does not work on a mouse, and it on not a real mouse, and I don't get along with it on a touchpad either.
yeah. I mean,
It does not work for me.
I don't know. I mean, it seems kind of natural. Like it took me a little bit of getting used to it when I was on iOS or Android or something. But like, you feel natural doing that on Android, but it doesn't. I mean, I don't think like I would kind of like you. I mean, I would be trying to scroll down with my mouse wheel and it'd be going up. I'm like, what? What is it doing? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't feel natural at all to me.
I mean, they
I
have some.
think it's a joke.
Yeah. And I know C. Jones said in the chat room before we started, he said that he doesn't really like the way that Lion is going, and they're really, and there's been some debate whether they're trying to bring Mac users more accustomed to iOS or iOS users back into the Mac, because like right now the iPad is now outselling Macs like completely. Like their Mac sales are up, but iPad and iPhone and like iOS sales are so big right now that it's just trumping like their Mac sales. So, and that's what happened in their earnings call. I mean, they had an amazing earnings call. They had one of the best earnings calls they've ever had, but a lot of people were still surprised that they didn't sell as many Macs as they thought that they would. Which,
I'm not that surprised, to be honest, because the mobile devices are more popular.
yeah, I'm not either. I mean,
Always have.
and barrier to entry. I mean, $200 for an iPhone 4 on a contract. Anybody who wants a smartphone is probably going to jump on that, you know, because
You get those iPhone and iPad users don't have Macs; they use Windows computers, so
Yeah.
that would be partially something to do with it.
a couple new things. I know they have some new dev tools in Lion, and they did do some UI revisions. I think like in iCal a little bit different. Like they made it look more like the
I
iPad
really
app.
don't like the look of iCal at all.
What they did, Jeb, I don't know if you've seen the screenshots, but they made it look like leather. Like, you know, it looks like
It is horrible.
yeah, it's weird. I mean, it kind of it would suit an iOS device a little bit. Like, I still don't think I'd like it that much, but another.
Oh, first time I opened that, I went straight off. I hate it.
Now, Carla, let me get your thoughts on You want to say something?
No, it was all like going crazy over here.
Oh. Let me get your thoughts on some of the full screen applications. So that's one of the newer things that they put into Lion is like some applications. I think Chrome does do it, but like
And Chrome does it, yeah.
Photo Booth does it, and a couple of other applications. You can now put full screen, and it completely hides every like UI aspect of Lion except for the controls for the what am I thinking of? The controls for the application. So like Photo Booth, you get like a full screen Photo Booth, and like you just get click through menus.
To be honest, I don't like it full screen.
And
And not even on a laptop. And on this computer, on the iMac, if I put something full screen on here, my second monitor becomes useless.
yeah,
Can't
that's what I've
access
heard.
it. I don't like it at all.
Now, coming from a Linux background, I would say that the new okay, hold on. Mission Control is the one that's like spaces, right?
Yeah, the mission control's got the spaces and the exposé combined together.
With the view at the top, that kind of reminds me of the newer versions of GNOME 3. You know how like GNOME 3 like really doesn't have, if you have an application open, it's meant to not be minimized. So like you have a new workspace for every application.
And yeah, the view at the top, they are the spaces, and then
That kind of reminds me of GNOME 3. There's that's
Sort
Launchpad
of.
that Jeb's got up there. So I mean that looks exactly like a big iOS device, and like you can scroll left to right with your. I think they've got some, and they did implement some new gestures, which a lot of people like.
well, that's the launch pad from the looks of it.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to make their operating system touch friendly.
Well, but with the recent, I mean, if they were gonna do that, I think if anything, they're making it more friendly to touch pads, like with the iPhone, or not with the iPhone, with the MacBooks and all the new devices.
So it does work well on the MacBook with the swiping to swap spaces and swiping into mission control and using the launch pad to launch some things. It works well on the MacBook, but on my iMac, where it's set up as a desktop, no trackpads, proper mouse, I don't use it that much on there.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of this new hardware. They did release new MacBook Airs, which we were talking about earlier. Really awesome. Let's see what. Yeah, I do have the MacBook Airs first. So it got faster processors. They implemented the new Sandy Bridge processors. That's whatchamacallit there. That's the other thing we were talking about.
Mission control.
Yeah, mission control. Still got the 11.6-inch screen and a 13-inch screen. They've got the new Thunderbolt port, which allows daisy chaining. You can do like the 27-inch display that we're going to talk about later. And Carlo and I were talking about this. They still have the same SSD thing, but I think what I've heard is the RAM is actually soldered onto the board, so you can't do your own RAM upgrades, but you can do your own SSD upgrades if you feel like it.
And the batteries
Sort of.
soldered into, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
They've been doing that for a while now
Yeah.
to get it smaller form factor.
So really, still the same SSD sizes. We haven't seen too big of an SSD like becoming cheaper or anything. So they're still going to be the same sizes. But one of the big things that Apple did with this release is they did away with the white MacBook 13-inch model, which was like their entry level $1,000. If you want to get a Mac laptop, you get this white MacBook that's made out of plastic. And
It's pretty much the only one they didn't make out of
aluminum, yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say aluminium because I'm from the UK.
Yeah, true. Let's see. That was kind of a big step in one way, because I know a lot of for educational purposes, they open, a lot of people like they would buy that because it gave them a pretty powerful laptop. You got the portability of a laptop, but you got you got everything that Mac software and everything brought to the table. But now they've done away with that, and they're kind of marketing the MacBook Air. I mean, the MacBook Air is now the cheapest laptop you can buy. And for $1,000, same price point, you get 11.6-inch laptop, which if you're just going to use an 11.6-inch laptop as like your daily driver, I think that screen might be a little small, but if I got it, I would definitely have like either a Thunderbolt monitor or just a regular PC monitor or something to hook up. That way you can do like other things. You can have dual displays and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I think the big thing right here is the MacBook Air was one of the only computers that were still running on the lower clock speed and the older processors. Now you've got i5 processors with, I think is it 2, have they gotten up to 2 gigahertz or is it 1.8? 1.7. And,
I'm pretty sure they haven't got up to 2 yet.
okay. And the 13.3 inch, you're going to pay more for that, but the standard is, I can't, do you have it up, Jeff? I mean, what's the capacity? Is it 64 gigs, I think, that you get on the $1,000 one?
For what?
Yeah, the low end one I think it's 64. Then you can
Yeah.
get 128,
And then 256.
256 as well.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think the MacBook Air is just such nice hardware. And honestly, Carlo and I were talking about this. Carlo said that, well, why don't you were talking about maybe replacing a MacBook Air in a couple of years, or your iPad in a couple of years, instead of buying a new iPad, maybe buying a MacBook Air.
I thought, well, I've got the iMac here as my main workstation. Then I got the MacBook Pro 13-inch and an iPad 1. And I was thinking that when it does come to the point where I need to replace that MacBook Pro, because obviously will last forever, and instead of getting a new iPad, that I will kill two birds with one stone and get a MacBook Air.
Yeah. That would, I mean, that's kind of what I did when I went with this laptop. Like, I tried to get a smaller laptop that would still, do the work that I wanted. And looking, I mean, you got the SSD, and also you've got an i5 now, in the lower end MacBook or MacBook Airs. You could definitely use this as a daily driver. I mean, you are gonna have some storage issues. Like, I don't think this would be my main workhorse. I would probably have a desktop like you do, Carlo.
Yeah.
Or something like this. But maybe with using this as an iPad MacBook hybrid, I think this is awesome. And honestly, I think I would recommend this. This is a good daily driver for some people who want a small laptop and don't need much storage use, which, if you're on the internet all the time, you don't need too much storage at least. So
That's what I go for. I don't use the iPad that much. Use the iPhone more than the iPad. And most of the time, my brother don't have a computer, so a MacBook Air would be perfect for me to replace those two in the future, and then I wouldn't put much on it, and I'd keep my main desktop.
another one of the big hardware upgrades that they made were the Mac Minis were updated. They ditched the DVD, what do they call those, super drives?
Yeah, the DVD super drive.
Which was that was kind of a weird move in my opinion. I could see it on a laptop because, portability, you're not going to be doing too much with a DVD, CD, whatever drive on a laptop, but for something that is still marketed as a desktop computer, I know Ron uses a Mac Mini for one of his desktop PCs, which is completely fine. And that if I got one, that's what I'd use it for. But I know some people use it as home media center stuff. But don't you agree, Carlo? That was kind of a weird move, taking that out.
I was incredibly surprised because I still consider a Mac Mini to be a desktop computer. They are popular for home theatre systems and that, but I guess that they're going in that direction where they're trying to. Maybe this is an experiment to kill off the DVD drive and get everyone to download from the App Store. So I think you still get them in the iMacs and all the other ones. So I guess it's if you want a desktop and you're not bothered about the DVD drive, then I guess go for Mac Mini.
Yeah. Now, looking at some of the pricing options, you've got a 2.3 gigahertz i5 dual core, 2 gigs of RAM, 500 gigabyte hard drive. You do, with the lowest end one, you still have the Intel HD graphics, which I've been pretty impressed with on my laptop. And that's what you're going to get with the Air as well. You don't have a set aside graphics chip, and it ships with OS X line. That's $600. That's a pretty decent entry into the Mac line. You get a brand new. I mean, obviously you don't get the. I mean, you get a pretty powerful computer, i5. I mean, it kind of bothers me that there's not a CD drive or a DVD drive. So.
There's a way around that, though. So you can get an external USB DVD drive if you're that bothered.
Much like a lot of people, I know, Carl, you said that you did this with your netbook. A lot of people got around this with the MacBook Air as well, buying an external USB or something DVD drive. So, The next step up is 2.5 gigahertz. You still get the same, pretty much the same spec, except you double your RAM, 4 gigs of RAM, and you get AMD Radeon HD, 6630 mobile graphics chip. So you do get a kind of a set aside, graphics processing unit. So, I don't know. That's for $800, and then you can go up to an i7 dual core, 500 gigs of storage. You got 7,200 RPM, 4 gigs of RAM, whatever. That's $1,000. So they also introduced this with Thunderbolt support, which I guess all the Macs now have Thunderbolt support since they did away with the 13-inch MacBook. So
I started to see as well. You get dual hard drives in there now. So
for
they sacrifice the
server.
DVD for more storage.
Yeah.
So if you get that, the $1,000 one is dual. Sorry, I missed that dual 500 gig hard drive, 7,200 RPM. So you've got a terabyte of storage. So that's pretty cool. I don't know, but that $600 price point, even though you're only getting 2 gigs of RAM, like that's a pretty nice entry into the MacBook, or not in the MacBook, into the Mac ecosystem. And I was looking on the refurbished store for sub $500 right now. You can get one of the MacBooks that's Core 2, I think it's Core 2 Duo still, but it's got the CD drive for sub $500. And like if you're somebody who wants to get into Mac and you don't need the latest hardware and everything, like there you go. For less than $500, you can get you a Mac, and it still runs. Since it's Intel and since it's only like a generation back, you'll still have support for, I'm sure, like plenty of the OS releases to come. So I mean, you are limiting yourself in a way, but you are spending
Well,
less
if
than
you've got a Core
$500.
2 Duo, you can still run Lion.
Yeah, and more than likely you'll be able to run a couple more releases as well. So hey, that's awesome. They also released now. Carl, what's the story with this? Did they not always have a Thunderbolt display? I mean, I thought that they did.
I don't think so. Not until this. The Apple
Okay.
Cinema display didn't have Thunderbolt in it until now.
So now they've kind of ditched the cinema display, and now it's called the. Actually, they have like a new name. The Thunderbolt. I guess they're just calling it the Thunderbolt display. It's got their new I/O technology that we saw in the iPad. It's got a really nice. It's 27-inch. I think a couple revisions back they ditched the 24-inch offering. It's 2560 by 1440, 69 aspect ratio, of course. It's got the FaceTime HD camera with a microphone, and then it's also got. So they do design this to be used beside like your new MacBook Pro or your new MacBook Air. You've got some nice. It's got like a MagSafe adapter that hooks up to it, and you can actually like power some USB ports. And I think you
It's
can.
basically the iMac without the Mac, to be honest, because you get the same thing. You get the 4 USBs, the Thunderbolt, and headphone socket, and that kind of thing with it on the back.
Yeah. And one of the things that they're touting with Thunderbolt is, of course, you can like daisy chain them. So if you want to have like 2 displays, I think you can do that as well.
I've seen that in action with the iMac. I've seen that. You can put 2 of those displays on it and have a 3 monitor setup and that kind of thing.
So that's $1,000. I've seen people do this before. I mean, it's kind of hard to get a 27-inch display that would be that resolution. So it's really not that expensive once you look at it, and you've got all these docking options and all that stuff. So there you go. All right, our final story for the day comes from the Next Web. This is a hilarious story. And I think,
this is laughable. It's beyond stupid. This.
I actually don't think I included some pictures, but it was some random blog that came up with this story first that I saw. But Apple Store, there's some fake Apple stores in China, and you're like, okay, whatever. But the weird thing is, some of the most of the employees didn't even know that they didn't work for Apple. So, I mean, there's these Apple stores, and, I mean, they've got, like, the Apple logo out front, but the key thing that people were seeing is, it says Apple Store. You'll never see an Apple store that's labeled Apple Store. If anything, it'll just have a logo, and then maybe say Apple. And, I mean, you can look at these. I don't think this article has any pictures with it, but they did a really nice job. Like, I mean, they had iPads out there. They had some MacBook Pros. I mean, they looked exactly the same. And a lot of people, I don't know if they're real iPads or not, but it's just crazy. I think Jacob. Yeah, here's some pictures. There's a
Yeah,
guy leaning up.
it's ridiculous how they even get away with that at all, for as long as they did.
And I was listening to another podcast, and they were saying, "Hey, I mean, there's a chance that Apple will go after them, but I mean, just look at that. The genius or who whatever the Apple Store employee even has the same shirt on that they wear. I mean, this is just crazy. I mean,
Sent another lawsuit.
yeah. I mean, just look at that. I mean, it looks just like an Apple Store. Is there any more pictures that you can pull up? I mean, I know that there was one that like they even had some iPod posters up and stuff. Yeah, there's where it says Apple Store.
And the store's even spelled wrong. Store.
Apple stove.
Oh gosh. Anyway, I just thought that was a funny. And honestly, I don't know. I mean, I would be.
And the apple's backwards, by the way.
Oh, it is. Okay. So I don't know. If you're in China, watch out.
No, it's not.
No, I don't think it is. Watch out for some fake Apple
Just kidding.
stores.
There's
That's
some.
obviously fake. Because even the logo isn't backwards, but it's
It doesn't look
not
right.
quite right. Doesn't look right.
It looks skinny or something. Good stuff.
All right. So yeah, we've had a pretty awesome show today. We got some Google Plus news in there. We got some Apple news. Make sure to come back. For everybody who didn't watch Fab Lab this week, we are not going to do any more episodes of PP at Night, unfortunately, as of now. Just because, with Gadget Gurus and Tech Weekly, it enables all three of us to kind of focus more on the shows that are more packed with news. And PB at Night was just overlapping way too much. So we're going to have more time to research and everything. So, that's awesome. You can check out our calendar. I know Tyson Brooks added his to his Google Calendar. That's a good way you can subscribe to our Google Calendar, or it'll automatically insert it into yours. What is it?
Is that fixed now? Right.
Yeah.
As long as you keep that one up to date.
Yes, as long as I do. But that one is up to date. Are you renaming it there? Wait, what are you doing?
Didn't that work? Didn't you set up that?
Yeah. Yeah, that works. Like Joe was setting up, you can now go to tech.pbcast.tv. That works as well. You can follow Carlo on Twitter, twitter.com/Carlo Brown, and he's also a contributor to the teenagehackers.com. Carlo, thanks for joining us this week.
My pleasure.
And then you can follow Jabe on Twitter, twitter.com/freakinghuge, FREAKINHUGE. And check out his blog, jaberoberts.me. And obviously, you can just search on Google Plus. I might be the hardest one to find because I have like a really standard name, but like otherwise, Carlo Brown. I know he's easy to find. Jabe Roberts, you can probably find him as well. But you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/thatnickjones, and nickjones.me is my personal blog, as well as Google Plus. Just search Nick Jones. Hopefully, you'll find me, find my profile picture there. So, anyway, guys, until next time, I'm Nick Jones.
I'm Jacob Roberts.
And I'm insane.
This has been another episode of Tech Weekly.
See ya.
Peace.